All right, y'all. So I want to talk about worshiping in the wilderness. So I was talking with the Lord this morning. Actually, I was out for a walk, kind of surveying our neighborhood and like all the damage that has happened since this downfall, right? And, just thinking about how rain is a blessing, right? And how, the winds and the rain beat down, right? And they're pruning like these trees and stuff, and these bushes. And, when we get too much rain, we think, it's a bad thing. But what's interesting is God was telling me like the plants are loving this, right? There's something called a former and a latter rain, where it says that Christ poured out his spirit on all people. There's the former rains and the latter rains. And so, God is kind of talking me through that. Like the trees are so vibrant, right? And the hydrangeas are freaking loving all this stuff. Like it's amazing, right? But we as people were like, oh my gosh, my house, oh my gosh, my tree and all these down limbs and stuff. And so, I'm just praising the Lord. I'm like, wow, thank you for the rain, like rain down, right? Like you bring the harvest. And see, the more rain we have, the better the harvest will be, right? So, again, it's our perspective of things, can sometimes be skewed, right? It can be off. So that being said, I'm driving to work and I'm praying and I'm talking with the Lord, and he's showing me something. I'm getting the opportunity to worship at this thing called the Hollywood Prayer Network on Monday with my new band, Mountain Move Music, which is a tremendous opportunity and an answer to a prayer like 13 years ago. So God is good and he's on the move, but he's giving me something to talk about, right? And so I'm kind of thinking about that, about, Moses taking the Israelites, out of Egypt and what Moses says to Pharaoh and what he's called to do. Well, what's interesting is when I was thinking about that, God was like, the promised land is just that, right? The promised land is promised, right? And so if you tell me, well, I can praise you in the promised land, or I can praise you on the mountaintop, that's nothing. That's easy. It's kind of like when the Bible talks about it's easy to love those who love you, or it's easy to love those who are lovable. It's hard to love the unlovely, right? It's hard to love your enemies. What he was telling me is, he said, I want to know, can you worship when it's dry? Can you worship in the wilderness? Can you worship when you're hungry and when you're thirsty and when you are in need, right? And I was like, oh my goodness. He was like, I am the God of the mountaintop just as much as I am the God of the valley. And I thought to myself, oh my goodness, that's such a good word. So I just want to remind you guys today that the valley, Moses asked Pharaoh to let the people go. He said he wanted him to let the people go so that they could go and worship in the wilderness. And when the people became fearful and doubtful of all the miracles that God did while they were in the wilderness, that's what locked them there. So you want to take the next step. You want to get closer to that promised land. Worship. Worship when you are dry. Worship when you are hungry. Worship when you are thirsty. He says that I will anoint your head with oil and I will prepare a table for you before your enemies, that I will bring you next to still waters and give you rich lands to eat from. So worship. The key is worship. I pray that this brings blessings to you and that it enlightens the eyes of your understanding. And I pray that you guys have a blessed rest of your day. Bye-bye.